Welcome everyone, I am absolutely thrilled you're joining me today. We are jumping right into an explainer that goes straight to the absolute core of existence. Literally, we're exploring the foundational concepts of reality itself. Whether you're a longtime philosophy buff or honestly just someone who looks up at the night sky and thinks, how does all this actually work? Well, you are in the perfect place. We are going to unpack some of the most profound ideas ever conceived by human minds, and we're going to do it step by step. So I want you to start by genuinely asking yourself this profound question. What is the fundamental structure of reality? Think about it. If you strip away the laws of physics, the chemistry, the biology, what is actually left? What is the invisible architecture that makes our universe even possible? It's a question that has haunted brilliant thinkers for thousands of years, and the answers they've come up with, they still silently shape the way we understand our modern world today. Okay, let's dive into this explainer. Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll ask, what is metaphysics? Then, 2, the problem of change. After that, 3, Aristotle's theory of reality. Next, 4, criticisms of Aristotle's theory. Then 5, the Atomist Counterargument. And finally, 6, why this debate matters. Alright, let's kick things off with section 1. What is metaphysics? Now, I know the word metaphysics gets thrown around a lot. Sometimes when people are talking about healing crystals or the supernatural. But in the strict academic sense, it traditionally means the science of being qua being. Take a breath, I know that sounds like super dense academic jargon, but what it really means is that we are studying being as it is in itself. We aren't studying specific things, like a plant or a planet or a person, which is what the natural sciences do. No, we are studying existence itself. What does it actually mean for anything to exist? It's not about empirical physics, it's about the underlying assumptions that make empirical physics possible in the first place. Moving right along to section 2, the problem of change. And this brilliantly illustrates the historical, philosophical problem that demanded a solution. We're looking at a massive intellectual crisis in ancient Greece. Over on the left, we have Heraclitus. He argued that everything is in a continuous state of flux. You can't step into the same river twice. Reality is pure becoming. But on the right, we have Parmenides, who dropped a total logical bomb. He argued that something cannot come from nothing. Therefore, whatever is, always has been. Change, he claimed, is a complete illusion. Reality is pure static being. So, who is right here? Is the universe constantly changing, or is change just a trick of our senses? This brings us to section 3, Aristotle's theory of reality. So Aristotle stepped in as the intellectual heavyweight to solve this massive contradiction. He realized that to save our everyday, common-sense experience of the world, he needed a framework that allowed for both permanence and change. His incredibly elegant solution is a concept called hylomorphism. It's a Greek compound word, hyle meaning matter, and morphe meaning form. This doctrine states that all natural, unified wholes, like a tree, a dog, or you and me, are composites of two things, substantial form and prime matter. In the natural world, you just cannot have one without the other. Let's ground this abstract idea with a simple everyday analogy. Think about a drop of ink on a piece of paper. The matter is the determinable substratum. It's the actual physical stuff, the liquid ink itself. The form, on the other hand, is the determining pattern or state. So, for instance, the state of being wet or the state of being dry. When the ink dries on the page, the matter hasn't just popped out of existence, right? But it has taken on a completely new form. There is permanence, which is the matter, and there is change, which is the form. Let's move to and see how this builds into Aristotle's famous argument from change. Step 1. Change exists. We literally see the ink dry. Step 2. This presupposes that things have potentiality and actuality. The wet ink has the potential to be dry, and later it becomes actually dry. Step 3. This entire process requires something that persists, a substratum or matter, and a new pattern it adopts, the form. Step 4. Therefore, Aristotle concludes matter and form must be fundamental realities. It seems like a bulletproof logical deduction, doesn't it? And honestly, it dominated Western thought for centuries. But now for the twist. Section 4. Criticisms of Aristotle's theory. Modern philosophers have put Aristotle's theory under a serious microscope, and they found a huge problem with how his supporters argue for it. Defenders of Aristotle often rely on an implicit argument that goes a bit like this. Substantial form implies substantial change. Substantial change implies prime matter. Then they point to the world and say, well, Natural objects clearly exist, and they inherently possess an internal source of change. Therefore, there are objects with substantial forms, and boom, they claim that proves hylomorphism. But modern critical analysis delivers a fierce punchline to this logic. Critics look at this and call the argument utterly question-begging. It is a classic logical fallacy. So the crucial point is this. To argue that Aristotle's framework is true simply by pointing out that natural objects exist is, well, it's cheating. Why? Because Aristotle strictly defines a natural object as a thing that already contains a substantial form. You can't prove that substantial forms exist by pointing to something that you've already defined as having a substantial form. It's a completely circular loop that presupposes the exact thing it's trying to prove to the critic. Which brings us to an entirely different perspective. Section 5, the Atomist Counterargument. If Aristotle's logic fails to prove his structure of reality is the only correct one, what else could explain change? Enter atomism. This is a totally alternative worldview. It's the philosophical theory that bodies are actually composed of tiny, indivisible parts, atoms. And in this view, change isn't some mystical shift of substantial forms happening inside prime matter. No, change is simply the physical rearrangement of these microscopic parts. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can contrast these two explanations for the exact same event. Going back to our ink drying, the Aristotelian views this as a profound metaphysical event. It's the loss of the substantial form of wetness and the generation of dryness within prime matter. But the atomist? They look at the exact same drying ink and say, nope, it's just atoms A, B, and C shifting from a liquid-like arrangement to a solid-like arrangement. It's the exact same observation, but a completely different structure of reality. So the critics conclude that Aristotle's argument from change only successfully proves one thing, that something undergoes a change, resulting in a new pattern. That is it. It completely fails to disprove atomism. It doesn't rule out the possibility that matter is just finitely divisible into little particles that rearrange themselves. Aristotle definitely proved change happens, but he didn't definitively prove his specific hylomorphic explanation of it over the atomist one. Finally, let's wrap up with section 6, why this debate matters. You might be sitting there thinking, okay, but why do we care about a debate between ancient Greeks today? We care because metaphysics literally forms the invisible architecture of everything we know. First, it distinguishes the contingent laws of modern physics from the philosophy of nature, meaning it asks what the world must fundamentally be like for science to even be possible in the first place. Second, it acts as a guardrail. It prevents us from confusing hard empirical facts with our own underlying assumptions about existence. And third, it provides the strict logical tools we need to adjudicate between competing claims about ultimate reality. The timeline of Western thought is highly interconnected. It's like a giant puzzle. The thinkers of today are constantly modifying, updating, and criticizing the thinkers of yesterday. To truly understand the scientific and philosophical solutions we rely on right now, we absolutely must grasp the history of the problems that birthed them. We are still participating in the exact same grand conversation that started with Heraclitus and Parmenides. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. The next time you read a headline about quantum physics or the fundamental nature of the universe, look a little closer. If modern science relies on underlying assumptions about reality, are we still unknowingly relying on ancient metaphysical debates to understand our universe today? I really hope this explainer has given you a powerful new lens to view reality through. Keep questioning everything, keep learning, and thank you so much for your focus today.